Welcome, one and all, to another evening of Link to the Past Randomizer 2022 main tournament action. Today we've got AverageFrustratedGamer versus Driekiann. The group is C, and the mode is MC Shuffle, Boss Shuffle, Randomizer. I'm Ben Creighton, and joining me is, I'm going to take a wild stab and say Miendium. Did I get that even close?
Good enough. Yeah, everybody, I am Miendium. Ben alongside me. We are going to bring this action to you this evening. AFG has already played one game against P-Train in this group, had the inverted keys mode, and lost that game. I believe this is Driekiann's first game.
I believe you're right, and yeah, I was lucky enough to be on comms yesterday for AFG's first game of the tourney, and yeah, he got bit a little bit by some rude hammer placement, so let's hope that RNG can be kinder and he can be a little less frustrated today.
Never happens. He starts it frustrated and works his way right on up from there. We do have some instant divergence here, of course. Driekiann deciding to have the house start, gonna go visit the uncle. AFG already into the forest, started at Sank, got, I believe that was a 3-bomb pack there.
I believe that's correct, and that's always nice to validate that Sank start, knowing that you're not going to have to worry about bombs. AFG doubling back to grab $50 from the mushroom spot.
Just in case you need to buy more bombs, pay off the bottle vendor, all of those early game, small cash considerations. Glove's pretty good, though.
Yep, good to have. AFG saving and quitting seems like maybe a bit of muscle memory. That's typically what you'd do if you hadn't found bombs by now, but heading back to Sank. Oh, okay, he's going to go into Back of Escape. That makes sense.
Yeah, wants to pick off Back of Escape immediately. I like it. It wasn't something that had entered my mind right away either, but I see what he's doing there.
Yep, and that's the sort of thing that can easily escape one's mind. Oh dear, that was an unintentional pun, I swear.
It happens. Chat will probably forgive us someday in the long, distant future.
Yep, but that was a sword there in the Back of Escape, as well as a small key, which is going to let AFG darkroom his way into the Dark Cross area.
Early sequence breaks, starting from finding a glove in a perfectly sequenced location, but now we're going to do dark rooms for just a second. It is boss shuffle only, it's not full Randomizer, so the dark room's no scarier than normal. It's just rats and bats down here in the basement, and the occasional snake or two.
Yes, indeed. This MC Shuffle Randomizer is a fairly new mode, and that was the Bombos medallion there in Dark Cross. A fairly new mode with the new functionality here in the randomizer that makes compasses upon an in-dungeon map check. They will reveal what the boss of that dungeon is, so taking away potentially a little bit of the sting of boss shuffle.
Which is nice, although some of us feel maybe not the way Rando originally intended. I kind of got my start in it around the time that Potpourri was on the ladder, and just walking into the boss room being surprised was a fun change of pace. But our runners don't have to be today, as long as they have that compass in hand. Now we have AFG making these uncle checks with the sword, likely to go ahead and see the front of escape check. I'm not sure if we've seen the map yet or not. While Driekiann is into the village, nice early item dense location, good hammer there in Blind's hideout. Now, probably a few more things worth talking about here in the next minute or two.
And that's the map of Eastern Palace. Already found the compass a little earlier, but those maps and compasses do not have any logical implications. The algorithm, to my understanding, does not go out of its way to make sure that you have them before requiring you to head into that dungeon.
What they are is nice convenience items, since this is ultimately a 7-7. This is not an all dungeon, so if you don't have to clean out a pendant dungeon, you'd really prefer not to.
But that bow in the front of Escape is something that could conceivably be pointing us in the direction of Eastern, as Driekiann finding a flute conveniently in the Kakariko Village well.
One of those things that some runners like to try and skip the village for a little while, hope that you have the flute and can activate it on your first trip. Well, sometimes it's just in the village and that play doesn't work out so well.
Yep, that's one of those long shot plays that's probably not going to pay off, but doesn't hurt you too bad if it doesn't.
And game, that is the wrong boomerang. Almost vanilla, but not quite. One final check here in Zelda's cell. Driekiann finding 20 bucks there in the chicken shack. That seems thematically appropriate for a chicken shack.
Yep, and AFG checking the stun prize to find that it's 5 arrows. Not bad to know, having just found that bow.
It's a really convenient way to be able to fill up later. You happen to get into GT a little low on arrows, you wander over to the Stalco's room on the left-hand side, you can stun them all of a sudden you've got 15 more sticks to your name. But Driekiann has Dark World access now, not only the hammer over on the inventory, but also the Moon Pearl.
Yep, pulling that Moon Pearl out of the back of Tavern, and opts to continue on to check Library and Race Game. I'm always a big fan of going into Dark World straight from CAC Village, but that's something that folks have differing opinions on.
I'll admit I'm much more of a clear out Spear 1 before taking advantage of your Dark World access, especially when you've got a seed like this, where every Spear 1 location so far has been stacked.
Yep, one of those decisions that there's certainly no wrong answer to, and Driekiann is heading to do a slight sequence break and grab the old man in the dark, and I also missed that. He apparently picked up Hookshot from somewhere.
Would have had to be in the village somewhere, I would think.
I would think so too. AFG grabbing a blue cane and some Garbo from Sasra's closet, and also checking that green pendant location. It's going to be in Pod today.
Well, that's interesting. There is a bit of a meme regarding AFG. His text came up a few times in the qualifiers, believe in Pod. Well, who knows? Today, maybe it plays true again. Driekiann finally out of the dark there, and Wild Old Man is attached for the moment. We'll see. Just a compass. Swamp Palace. It's as good as any other compass, I suppose. And as you had suspected a minute or two ago, that bow certainly leading AFG into the direction of Eastern. We'll get several checks in here.
Yep, one of which is going to be the powder. Nice convenience item. Also, once AFG makes his way towards finding that hammer, we'll open up one more check in the CAC Village area.
It's going to be pretty much a clean sweep of the village. If he can find the boots, he's really going to be in decent shape. Now, the bottle as well, as I stop and think about it.
Yep, meanwhile, Driekiann's following that hook shot over into Paradox Cave.
Very convenient 7-item dense location here in the early game, accessed by that flute and hookshot. Let's see what it turns up.
That's a Quake Medallion there in the lower/higher, the two-chest section of Paradox.
I tend to just call them Paradox 2 and Paradox 5. It cuts through all of the confusion. Now, I saw somebody in chat saying bow landmo was coming up. Well, there's part of being able to do bow landmo. We have a book there on Driekiann's side.
Yep, of course, this being a boss shuffle, I think the idea being that Bo Lanmo, for all we know, might be right here in Eastern.
Yeah, that's potentially the thing as well. Who knows? Maybe Landmo's just hiding in a pendant dungeon and we never see it. Of course, when you start talking about boss shuffle, there's always the question, will I need the ice rod today?
Yep, that is the question mark, but until we find the fire rod, it's not going to matter much one way or another. And AFG does have that eastern compass, as evidenced by the 5 of 6 checks. If he's made a map check, I haven't seen it, though, to see what the boss is, but he's heading towards the back like he thinks he's going to be able to do something when he gets there.
Ooh, a bit of an unfortunate dead rock there on Driekiann's side. Just going to go ahead and go to the backup strat of going into Hera first. Bit of an inconvenient small key there with no fire source. If that's locking the big key, then we wind up leaving something behind. But nope, there's the big key. Something behind in the basement with no fire, but we're going to be able to complete the rest of the dungeon in logic.
Yep, of course, with that hook shot for Hera Pot, which Driekiann gets on his first try there. Nicely done. Logic's a bit of a suggestion.
A handy suggestion at times.
And it looks like maybe chat did... ooh, that was the red cane there in Hera Big Chest. Oh, and the lamp. But chat must have caught a a map check that I missed, because it was in fact a bow slash Berna Lanmo fight here in Eastern.
Certainly not seeing the classical Lanmo NMG strats that we may see from some other runners in this tournament when they run into a Lanmolas. Meanwhile, we have somebody else who's a little out of place here, Helmazor King at the top of Tower of Hera.
Yep, a bit of a rough spot for him to show up, as he does tend to like to hug the top left corner, where it's hard to get close enough to him to knock that mask off without running the risk of getting a bad fall.
But Driekiann putting bombs to very good effect there, but then the hammer hitbox strikes. Very unfortunate, but not entirely surprising. Trying to hammer up on anything is not always the kindest, gentlest thing in the world of Hyrule, and Driekiann says, we will try that again later, with better equipment.
Yes, indeed. There's the spin speed strat that allows one to extend that hammer hitbox just a little, but unfortunately, you do need the sword to set up that spin, which Driekiann has yet to find. Meanwhile, AFG is giving us our first look in Mini Moldorm Cave, another of those nice, dense Sphere 1 locations. And we still don't know whether we'll need it, but we have in fact found the ice rod there in Mini Moldorm.
A very nice peace of mind item in Boss Shuffle, if nothing else. Both of our runners have a little bit of a walk ahead of them. Driekiann through the entirety of Spiral Cave, good for a map. And AFG, meanwhile, with the long, harsh trek past crabs and everything to Ice Rod Cave.
Driekiann about to drop down into the back of Escape and gonna find something that he wishes he had about a minute ago, which is that fighter sword. Whole lot of nothing in Ice Rod Cave. Let's see where AFG heads from here.
Sooner or later, I would expect him to make the play to the village, but apparently not quite yet. And Driekiann foregoing the trip into Dark Cross at the moment.
Yep, that was the Bombos medallion, as I recall. Could be a little rough if he puts that off for too long and winds up running into a cold stare, which can spawn in almost any dungeon.
Inconveniently enough, and it can be one of the more scary bosses in some locations. We already know that Helm is at the top of Tower of Hera, which is really one of them. There's a lot of ways that Cold Stare can just make your life miserable up there.
Yep. Meanwhile, both of our runners checking the dam, finding a bottle, first bottle of the seed, so that'll open up one check as well as a little bit of safety.
And reasonably conveniently checkable with the flute in hand for Driekiann.
Yep, and AFG heading to the left to the Agina check. That's going to be a new check, but that's, again, going to be a bit frustrating when he learns that that book that could have gotten him into Desert here was hiding in Kak Village all along.
Being very thorough about clearing out all these Sphere 1 locations, though, and at the end of the day, Driekiann has been as well. They've just picked different ways of going about it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22 in this mode where the by virtue of the maps and compasses being shuffled, every dungeon has 2 more items that could wind up being valuable. On the other hand, it's really hard to know in the early game which dungeons are completable and which aren't.
Which some, including myself, might tell you is the fun of boss shuffle.
Yeah, definitely a slightly gamblier mode, as AFG, having exhausted his other good options, is heading into Kak Village here. Meanwhile, Driekiann taking that book and showing us the inside of Desert. Driekiann also having a fire source in that lamp will be able to make it all the way to the boss, but whether he can defeat what he finds there, who knows?
And what he's found is that we're boots locked in some flavor. I don't know that we had a torch check, but no key in inventory after checking that middle chest.
Yep, so that dungeon being a bit of a bust, as it turns out. I believe it's, what, a 50-50 chance, theoretically, that it's boots locked?
Somewhere around there, I believe. AFG evening up with that flute. Let's see, is Driekiann now ready to have the look at the Dark World? This will be a check of the small child first, with that bottle in inventory now. And a purchase of explosives, entirely reasonable.
Yep, you don't want to be caught without them when you make your way around a hype cave, for example.
And this looks like a movement towards the portal at 3, so we'll finally see a little Dark World from one of our runners.
Yep, this is pen. Driekiann does have the ability to clear Thieves Town at the very least, plus quite a bit of overworld to check here, as well as the front of Skull Woods. Lots of possibilities for him.
Meanwhile, AFG, if he remembers that he has it, can give us a new check in the form of the magic bat.
And that does indeed seem to be his play here. Meanwhile, Driekiann heading into the front of Skull Woods.
Treat the front of Skull Woods a little bit like Overworld, particularly in Map Compass Shuffle, where all of a sudden it's not necessarily a map and a compass, so you're up to 4 items here rather than 2.
Just a trio of blueberries there on the Mad Batter today, so that early powder find is not going to be paying dividends for AFG.
In the end, all it gives him is another nice safety.
And that's a Master Sword in the button chest of Skull Woods there. Nice find for Driekiann, especially this early with still only 4 hearts and green mail to his name. Having a little extra stopping power to kill things before they kill you is very nice.
It's a little extra safety, just a different flavor of it.
And it looks like AFG is going to be showing us Hype Cave in a second here.
Choosing to put off the mountain, maybe thinking I could find some mitts before I get up there and do some real damage. Stop me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was something like Samaria, Quake, and Lamp and Book up there for Driekiann, so not much that really changes the early game.
Yep, so far AFG has been very much doubling down on his decisions, avoiding CAC Village for so long. If he sticks with that plan and avoids the mountain for a while, could wind up getting rewarded for it. But right now he's rewarded with information. We've got Ice Palace and Tower of Hera being our 5-6 crystals here today.
I'd say those are reasonably convenient 5-6 crystals. Now, Ice is going to take a little bit to get into, but that Bombos will help do it.
Yep, Tower of Hera is completable right now. It's, not the most fun to do, say, on 4 hearts and with hammer only, but fortunately neither of our runners are in that situation any longer.
And AFG has that bow in hand, and could very much just bow down the maskless phase of Helmasaur King.
And Driekiann taking an unfortunate overworld death there, gonna go ahead and do his own hype cave. Not gonna find a whole lot of hype there, but he's gonna do it.
It's awfully difficult to pass up those early 5-item locations. You get into the Dark World, it's functionally the Dark World Sphere 1 equivalent in at least most seeds, particularly when you have Hammer Glove access to the Dark World. It's very easy for the game to put something there. Skipping it, unlikely to happen for most runners.
Absolutely, I'm a big fan of that early hype cave play in this situation. It's not going to pay out right now, but if you find something like Fire Rod there, all kinds of things you could find there that could make your life better.
Even something as simple as another sword would not have gone amiss, but that was a fairly tripey-tripe cave.
Yep, and this mode does have progressive bows, so he could have found another bow there, would have been nice, but as it is, he's going to have to make his way into escape before he finds the only bow that has yet revealed itself.
Driekiann having a little more trouble with the enemies here on the Dark Overworld than AFG has had thus far. AFG having a little trouble of his own, though, the bomb toss and the explosion going all the way past the cracked wall of the brewery there. And even still, after spinning the second bomb, only 10 sticks as a reward.
And it looks like that's going to be a moth here as the boss of Thieves Town, rendering Thieves Town fully clearable for AFG here.
It's at least Skullwoods adjacent. It's kind of a French vanilla moth, you could say. You don't really imagine that all of these bosses just sit around by themselves, biding their time until the hero wanders by, don't you? You know, Moth probably comes and visits periodically.
I like to think they have a little ice cream social every other Friday. In answer to a question in chat, in Boss Shuffle, the boss will be in the boss room of Thieves Town. On your first visit there, you could go in there before making your way into the back, should one be so inclined, although it's typically accepted as faster to just go ahead and do the back first and do it more or less the vanilla way, as long as you know that the boss is going to be defeatable.
It does appear that that is the way that AFG wants to go about it. Going to go ahead and go to the back and check the other chests first before fighting the moth.
Yep. Now, Driekiann, also heading into Thieves Town, might decide to go ahead and poke his nose into the boss's room to begin with, to save him the time of doubling back to potentially find an undefeatable boss on the return trip. But we'll see.
Interesting how divergent the runners' routes were for the first 25 or so minutes of this, and then suddenly 28 minutes in, we are in the same dungeon and just a handful of rooms apart, really.
Yep, it's, of course, not even a half an hour in. It's pretty early to be calling much of an advantage, but we do have both of our runners in the same dungeon, AFG having done Eastern Palace and Driekiann having done the mountain being the big difference. But, of course, Eastern Palace rewarded us with a crystal, whereas the mountain gave us a bunch of stuff that could just as easily wait until later.
Mostly it's just different choices until one or the other of it actually pays out. Certainly possible that Driekiann will have something along the lines of the boots before going to Eastern Palace and can claw a little of that time back, for instance.
Certainly wouldn't hurt. And meanwhile, AFG finding his Master Sword there in the Maiden Cell, whereas Driekiann, when he makes his way there, is going to find his Tempered.
Tempered, a very comfortable sword level for pretty much every runner, I would think, particularly in the main tournament. It's much more effective at slaying pretty much anything than the Master Sword is.
Yep, not likely to make much of a difference here against this Moth. It'll go a little bit quicker, but the thing that makes Moth scary is the arena. Without his spikes, he's a bit of a sitting duck to whatever you happen to have, such as the hammer.
Yep, AFG unsurprisingly just going to go to the hammer, doing tempered sword damage anyway. The Moth not getting its damage boosts and damage reduction off of the spikes in its normal room, just falls apart in 4 quick hits. And there we have a surprise pendant.
Yep, so this is one of those situations that could have you wondering, is it possible the other guy skips this dungeon altogether? There wasn't much to speak of here. Bit of a time sink for a sword upgrade, but it's going to be a net zero proposition for our runners because they both did it. Although, Driekiann, having found the map, he does know that it's a pendant. He knows that he's doing it strictly for the items.
And if you feel like you're probably going to do it, you just go ahead and do it at the time, walking all the way back in through the front, back to the boss room. You don't really feel like doing that later either.
Yep, and it's, even being a pendant, the fact that it's a fully clearable dungeon with not a whole lot of better options, I think it's a very reasonable play. Unfortunate that it didn't work out for our runners, but such is Rando.
Again, kind of like the cave sometimes called Hype, it's a very early Dark World location. The game is absolutely capable of putting things there for you, whether it's a pendant or a crystal. Especially in something like MC Shuffle, where you've got a potential 2 extra items worth of item density in there to be had. It's all of a sudden 6 potential items instead of 4.
So at this point, we're starting to narrow down our list of suspects when it comes to what could be holding our progression, and Pod is the big question mark that's standing out in my mind.
I think you and Driekiann may be on similar tracks there, although the eastern area in general may have not been an earlier check for him.
Yep, and he may just be doing the Saha's Closet check. If he does go into Eastern Palace, he's going to be disappointed by finding not a lot of progression and not being able to reach the boss room without the bow that is currently hidden in the front of Escape.
And since it looks like our runners may kind of traverse each other's footsteps here for another couple of minutes, we did just have a question in chat, and I guess we can go ahead and cover this. What kind of tourney is this, Ben?
This is the Link to the Past Randomizer main tournament for 2022. It's the annual big community tournament. The top 128 runners, as determined by our 18 qualifier matches, have entered this group stage. There are 5 different modes that can happen here, and this one just so happens to be boss shuffle with maps and compasses shuffled outside of their home dungeons. And right now, still quite a bit away from Go Mode. It's still very much anyone's race, but right now, AverageFrustratedGamer's moves seem to be paying off better than Driekiann's. Driekiann made an early mountain play, took an unfortunate death to Helmasaur, and found not a whole lot else of immediate value He's also opted to skip the front of escape thus far, which is where he would find the bow that would allow him to complete the current dungeon that he's in, Eastern Palace, meaning that's going to be a non-required double dip for him.
Although, speaking of dips that may or may not have worked out well, AFG is now in a position where he could potentially give that mountain time on the light mountain back. Has not found anything to make this particularly faster or more exciting than when Driekiann made this play, 15 minutes ago or so?
Yep, at this point, the big difference maker is going to be if AFG manages to kill that Helmasaur that's hiding at the top of Tower of Hera on his first try. Driekiann is really hoping to find either a mirror to get up there quicker or the mitts, maybe, before he makes his way back up there for round 2 with Helmasaur. And in answer to a question in chat, so the bosses are randomized, as well as the maps and compasses. The compasses, if you find the compass of a given dungeon, you will be able to check the map screen to determine what the boss is of that particular dungeon. Meanwhile, the maps will determine, or rather will give you the information of what the dungeon prize is.
And it appears that Driekiann has finally sussed out that there has to be something kicking around in the front of escape here. I'm still mildly surprised that we're not seeing that play into Green Pendant Palace of Darkness, but what Driekiann's going to find here will make that play easier when and if it happens.
Yeah, I certainly don't hate the play here into front of escape over Palace of Darkness from Driekiann's perspective. With that green pendant being on the boss of Pod, you're leaving 2 items behind if you head in without a bow to make that play.
And now he does not have to worry about it because that is the bow in the map chest. That is the same bow that AverageFrustratedGamer has and has had for quite some time now.
Yes, indeed. Now, in this mode, we do have progressive bows, which means there is another bow lurking somewhere, but it could be in GT, it could be in a rude spot that our runners never check. It could be locked behind the first bow. We won't know until we find it.
Now we'll see here in a few moments, but we do know, thanks to AFG, that the Bombos medallion is in Dark Cross. Let's see if Driekiann sets up a death warp here.
He does indeed seem to be going out of his way to do that, taking a couple of hits from the ball and chain guard, and heading back to the green guard that he'd stunned previously for exactly that purpose. So that will give him a Bombos medallion, which might wind up being useful for entrance to Ice Palace later. Might also be useful if we find a cold stare lurking in the wild.
And could conceivably be the medallion entry requirement for either Mire, Turtle Rock, or both.
Yep, that's very true. To this point, we've determined that one of the pendants was in Thieves Town, the other one is the prize of the Palace of Darkness, but that third pendant's location has yet to be determined.
AFG using plenty of menu buffers here to get this Hera pot bomb lined up.
And it looks like Driekiann is going to be making that pod play.
This is the thing we've been curious about for a little while now, and Ben, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly feeling like mitts are going to have to show up here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's the big question mark. You never feel entirely comfortable until you have both the mitt and the hammer, and that starts to make sense to count up just how many items you are away from go mode. But we're going to be seeing new checks on both sides of the screen pretty soon here, as Driekiann made a trip to Tower of Hera, but did not successfully kill Helmasaur, nor did he double back and use that lamp to determine what was in the basement of Hera.
And we can see here that the bomb strategy that Driekiann employed for knocking the mask off is a lot more efficient, particularly in this arena, than trying to use the hammer. I am unsure if the bug has been fixed or not, but at one time there existed a bug where you could not damage the mask when the Helmasaur King was over that pit there.
And AFG taking a death there, too. I did not even see what hit them. Was that just a bad tail hit?
I think that must have been what it was, but in any case, AFG is going to go have a second bite at the apple here, setting up for another one of these bomb Hera pots.
And there's the flippers in the Stalfos room of pod, so Driekiann finding at least some value in there.
Could be interesting. All of a sudden, Swamp Palace may be on the table if the mirror happens to be tucked away in here somewhere.
Yeah, it opens up some Zora checks that could have been had earlier by fake flippering, but neither of our runners have shown much interest in that particular logic break. But now that it's in logic, it starts to be a more tempting proposition. AFG playing very careful here, does not want to take a second bad death, and unfortunately all out of bombs to make this a little easier for himself.
Seems to be effectively getting those hammer hits in this time, though.
And that mask is off, and the bow is out. And Helmasaur goes down. That is currently Helmasaur King 2, Runners 1.
I think we can expect that the runners are going to even that one out over the course of time, but that is a second crystal now on the board for AverageFrustratedGamer at 43 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yes, indeed. Just a bug net on the boss, so no progression other than the crystal, and AFG is going to head back in and show us what's in Hera basement.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Driekiann was missing the lamp at the time and had no fire to make this check?
Well, the lamp was located right here in Hera, but after taking that death, he apparently decided to cut his losses and not continue with his Hera track.
That would do it.
And that's the boots there in the dark maze of Pod, so Pod holding all the footwear that you could possibly want today, as well as a second bottle in the big chest.
And Driekiann deciding green pendant Helmasaur not of interest.
Yeah, potentially feeling a little behind and deciding to take what he's found and cut some corners and move right along here. And that's a blue mail in the basement of Hera. Nice to have, but not really what you want when you've dedicated that much time to obtaining it.
It's maybe a little more of a convenience in something like Boss Shuffle. Let's say you drop in on somebody unexpected in Skull Woods. That is a pretty nasty arena to fight a lot of bosses.
Yeah, that's true, and with still only 6 hearts to his name at this point, it's going to be a bit of a boon for AFG here. And, you know, when you think about it, all it has to do is prevent one death to be worth the time that you spent to go get it. So, could still wind up coming in handy.
Drake,
meanwhile,
going to follow those flippers immediately, I think is exactly where you were going too.
Yep, yeah, 100%, and rewarded with a mirror for his troubles.
Suddenly, the Swamp Palace play is 100% on the menu. Mirror flippers have shown up. We've had the hookshot for a little while now, and the hammer as well was part of our Dark World Access package.
Yep, opens up a couple of other slightly rude orphan checks, and that was a cape there on Zora Ledge. Now, meanwhile, AFG is going to show us the inside of Spike Cave. Oh, or
he caught a fairy in the basement of Hera. This, I think, was pre-planned.
There we go. Yep, you are correct, I'm fairly sure.
May as well use it and then open up the bottle. You've got plenty of cash money, although if Zora is on your mind, maybe it's not enough to fill that bottle with potion right off the hop.
Yep, but of course, as Driekiann just showed us, Zora is offering a 10% rebate on the absolutely nothing that he's offering you today. And yep, Driekiann, just like you predicted, seems to be following the items that he's been picking up. It's leaving him a bit of a breadcrumb trail.
It was either this, or you could have played into the bonk checks and the Northern Dark World loop there. Those are in a bit of an out-of-the-way location at this point, I feel, for our runners.
Yeah, I definitely like this play, especially considering that it is odds-on to be a crystal, so you're going to have to do it anyway. And AFG is likely to be hot on his heels heading into the pod play at this point. Interesting to see if he also opts to skip Helmasaur, if he decides to go for those 2 extra checks.
The inconvenience, of course, would be that the green pendant turn-in, not convenient since you have to take those flippers and get your mirror out of the waterfall cave. If the mirror had just been in here, then it becomes a much easier choice, I feel.
Yeah, it's not the worst to get back to when you've got the flute and the boots to get from that 5 spot to Susrala, but there's never a good time to check it. It's a weird orphaned one-off when you already done, in AFG's case at least, all of Eastern and about to have cleared out Pod. Well,
but such is life in Rando sometimes. AFG will get to make the choice one way or another.
and it'll be interesting to see what Driekiann decides to do vis-a-vis left side swamp. seems to be in a bit of a skippy mood, but unlike in non-MC Shuffle modes, you can't hope for that Dream Swamp where it's just the map and compass on the left side anyway.
Not only that, I feel that both of our runners, but Driekiann even more so, are down to so few locations that it's kind of tough to start skipping things when you're still missing the mitts at this late date.
Yep, I would tend to agree. And it looks like Driekiann agrees as well. Oh, or maybe not. Maybe I spoke too soon. He's at least heading into the back first. But Driekiann did find the fire rod there, so he's now set up to defeat, at least theoretically, any boss that he comes across.
And suddenly has access to the back of Skull Woods.
And Trinex in chat saying that it was, in fact, a Trinex in the back of Swamp, so nice find for Driekiann. Bit of a key under the doormat situation.
While AFG has picked up those flippers, has the Palace of Darkness big key now. Let's see what the answer is going to be here. Play into the back, it appears.
Trinex goes down, and let's see what Driekiann gets for his troubles.
A small fetch quest.
And a pendant. So that's our last pendant accounted for, which means at the very least this will not be a wasted swamp play. We are going to need that fire rod in order to get into the back of Skull Woods and find the crystal that's hiding there. Meanwhile, AFG opted to use the hammer yump, which leads me to believe that he is planning on routing this all the way through the Harmless Hellway and to the boss.
It seems reasonable to me. We'll just have to wait a little while and see what he wants to do.
And Driekiann not willing to leave items behind in Alice, and who blame him having picked up that big key on the boss. Just a piece of heart there in the big chest. Let's see what's on left side.
Couple more items yet to see. It is a location that it feels like the mitts like to hide in a little more often than they probably should.
Yep, and we are running out of places where those mitts could be hiding, but AFG is going to check a couple of those places right now as he is heading into the boss of Pod.
We'll have some information there, then maybe Driekiann's heading to Skull Woods, which is a known crystal. Plus, we still have that Northern Dark World loop outstanding. There are a few places where we can still go looking for the thing that we really need to finish cracking this seed open.
Or we could just find it right here. Because, yeah, those mitts are, in fact, in Left Side Swamp.
So that gives us a 66% chance of being in go mode. We've got a couple of medallion requirements to check yet. And Driekiann's going to go check one of them right now.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, AFG encountering a quintuple-eyed Moldorm in the basement of Pod. He's going to get a piece of heart and the green pendant for his troubles.
It is Quake for Misery Mire, a medallion that our runners already have.
So at this point, shaping up to be a reasonably even race. Driekiann hitting his Schrodinger's Go mode first, but has yet to complete either Eastern Palace or Tower of Hera, both of which AFG has checked off of his list.
Tower of Hera relatively quick. Driekiann can now make that the final crystal collected and then just hop right back in a mirror portal and watch Ganon's tower open. The slog through Eastern Palace, however, is a little more unfortunate.
Yep, it's made a little more palatable with boots, but right now AFG is spending some time doing some overworld checks, which are unlikely to pay dividends unless Turtle Rock winds up being ether locked and it winds up being hidden someplace rude, such as, say, Catfish, which is where he is headed right now.
A play that would work out much better if the mirror was already in inventory, but the mirror is what's on the other side of that particular mirror gap. Going to be almost on top of it and unable to collect.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, at this point, AFG really needs to be finding that mirror in the fairy fountain, rather, I should say, which will lead him into Swamp Palace, which is where his fire rod will be hiding.
But first to the green pendant.
Yep, hard to blame him. He spent the time to kill the boss for that green pendant. He wants to know what that move was worth. Just 20 bucks. Meanwhile, Driekiann has taken down the boss of Desert Palace and grabbed, his first crystal of the seed at almost an hour in.
I was surprised as well when I glanced down and saw that was Crystal 1, but Driekiann finally on the board there crystal-wise.
And Driekiann doesn't want any surprises here. He's going to be heading to Dark Death Mountain. He wants to see whether he is in true go mode.
Wants to be able to go just as quickly as possible through Misery Mire if it is possible. Wants to know ahead of time if he's still looking for items.
Meanwhile, it looks... well, AFG checking the hobo and fluting to 8, so it looks like he's got flipper checks on his mind. So he'll be finding his breadcrumb trail into his own go mode soon enough. And this is the moment of truth. Turtle Rock requires the Quake Medallion. The wave function collapses and Driekiann is in true go mode.
AverageFrustratedGamer, meanwhile, still has a little bit to go. Going to have to make the correct call to go to Swamp Palace and do both left side and the back. entirely reasonable to go ahead and clean up Zora area here first. While it does not have the answer, the coming back to here is inconvenient.
Yes, indeed. And from AFG's perspective, he is still missing the Fire Rod, the Mitts, and for all he knows, the Ether Medallion. The only two of those three things that he actually needs are hiding in Swamp Palace.
And it's going to be rematch.
Yep, Driekiann versus Helmasaur, round 2.
Just happily lobbing those bombs in from the right-hand side. The mask is already off, and the Tempered Sword comes out. One spin, couple of swings. This will get the job done. A couple of spins instead. There we go.
Meanwhile, AFG has made the correct call and is heading into Swamp Palace here.
The trick is making the entirety of the correct call.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that he skips left side of Swamp altogether, not having Mitts yet. But if you're feeling behind, sometimes you make crazy plays. On the other hand, he could decide to do left side to start with, which would shave just a couple of screen transitions off of Driekiann's lead over doing it after defeating the boss.
The question is, what happens if you go left side first and get the mitts, and the entire game unlocks to you, and you think, well, this is a pendant, but he doesn't know it's a pendant. We still do not have the actual map here. So, seems kind of likely that AFG would be heading for the back end in this case.
Yeah, of course, he does have the compass, and just check to find that, for all he knows, an undefeatable Trinex hides in the back there. On the other hand, once you've committed to this dungeon play, it's hard to imagine that he doesn't check those diver down chests, which is where he'll find the means to defeat that Trinex. Meanwhile, Driekiann is making his way through Ice Palace, rendered nice and quick by that Icebreaker glitch. And he is not going too far out of his way for chests. Not much that could help him here. The silvers would be nice, half magic could be nice. He never did find that blue mail, which would be a nice bit of safety, but nothing worth going too far out of your way for. Oh, and I'd remembered incorrectly, AFG just found his fire rod, so in the canal chest, so he does know that Trinex is defeatable. But he is going to go ahead and do left side first, and he's going to be rewarded by just a nice little time save for his troubles.
A little time save that he may need to start evening this back out. Driekiann, with that earlier go mode, is heading suddenly towards crystal number 3 here in ice.
Yes, indeed. Driekiann with, it seems like a nice little lead heading into the end game here, but he does still have Eastern Palace to clear before he climbs the mountain for the final time. And it looks like Driekiann also pulled the gold sword.
Gold sword was in the double Freezor room. And I think what may have happened there was a non-hit of the switch and then did not pull the Ice Palace big key, go-moding a little too hard.
Yep, it's situations like this that that cause me personally to just go ahead and hit the switch. Yes, it theoretically costs me time, but it saves me brain cycles, which tend to be at more of a premium than anything else, just to do it the same way every time.
Particularly when you wind up in the situation where it didn't work out, and suddenly you mirror out and you get to do the dungeon a second time. And AFG, without the pendant crystal knowledge, is going to go ahead and head to the back here. Likely
Yep.
to continue opening chests because, again, 66% chance of go mode is not true go mode.
Yes, indeed. And the chests that remain in here are largely on his critical path. I'd be a little surprised if he goes back in for that big chest, but everything else is just right here. Why would you not go for it?
But Driekiann has killed Argus in Cold Stare's usual location, and that is 3 crystals on the board. Looks like Misery Mire next on the table for Driekiann, and here is that Cold Stare fight from AFG. Tempered Sword gets the job done here pretty quickly.
And that Swamp-bound Trinex goes down. AFG about to get a little bit of disappointment.
And we'll see where he wants to go next. Does he feel comfortable with the 2 out of 3 medallion chance, or are we going to see the play to the mountain as well? That's some time that he cannot really afford to hand away to his opponent at the moment.
Yep, he's heading to the Desert Mire area, which makes a whole lot of sense as a first move here. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and open up Mire, so he's at least going to knock this, and I'm going to assume Desert Palace out.
It's been a little while since we've had both of our runners in the same dungeon, but now here they are again, both playing in Misery Mire.
And of course, the rule of Mire proven out once again. It's never a God Mire when you enter it in Go mode, and vice versa.
Instead, we have a big key in its vanilla location. The key logic for Mire will prove that out every time. If you have a small key in that top Firelock chest, you're going to have the big key in its vanilla location here.
What are you doing? What are you doing bringing in actual rules that hold up with key logic? I'm over here talking about made-up rules.
Those are the best rules, though, aren't they?
Yeah, you know, rule of fire and such.
The Ice Rod's always on vacation on Laser Bridge, you know?
Yeah. Pendant Pod always has progression. Oh, wait, it actually did this time.
It was a bit of a pendant progression seed, wasn't it? Thieves Town was a bit of the odd dungeon out, only a sword upgrade, but Palace of Darkness and Swamp Palace are really paying dividends.
Yeah, and it's It's hard to imagine skipping Thieves Town altogether, especially in an MC Shuffle seed where any given dungeon is going to have 2 more item checks worth of value to it, and with how early it was available and full clearable, hard to fault either of our runners for going for it.
Let's see how the fight looks here. Normally Vitreous, today it is Cold Stare. Bit of an inconvenient room for fighting Cold Stare. The acid, slime, whatever that is up there, still going to do damage to you, so Cold Stare can kind of hide up there and get on the run.
Yeah, but Driekiann making it look easy. Gets 20 bucks and another crystal for his troubles.
Buttersword tends to make a lot of things look rather easy. That is 4 crystals for Driekiann. Skull Woods, Eastern Palace, and Turtle Rock, the 3 left outstanding. AFG, you've blown up a Samaria block, you've used the lamp, there's no way you're spooky actioning here. It's just not going to be a thing.
Driekiann entering his Eastern Palace. Nothing to do here but beat feet for the boss. But it's a little bit of a slog to get there.
Now AFG against the Cold Stare Vitreous room thing here going on. Little bit more involved here with no Butter Sword, but a couple of fire rod shots there at the end cleans things up nicely. That's a 3rd crystal on the board for AFG, but he's gonna need to find some way to start closing this gap, because Driekiann's about to put a 5th crystal on the board here in just a handful of rooms.
Yeah, not gonna be a whole lot of opportunity for that. GT routing could make up some of the difference, but at this point, Driekiann's got enough of a lead that he's likely going to have to make a mistake to bring this back into a pretty close range.
Do we know what the boss is in the back of Skull Woods yet?
I don't believe we do.
Because some of those options can be really questionable.
Yeah, that's, there are the bosses that are hard because of the boss, and there are bosses that are hard because of the arena, and there are definitely some rough bosses that can spawn in Skullwoods. On the other hand, it could be a second Moldorm, at which point it becomes just an easy boss fight for babies.
It could just be a vanilla moth as well.
Yes, indeed. The way this particular boss shuffle works is that each boss will show up once, and 3 random bosses will be doubled. I don't believe we've seen any doubled bosses yet, so anything that can spawn in a given room still can spawn in a given room.
Driekiann on the way to show us what it's going to be, while AFG is about to get into that land mow spot.
Yep, gonna have the blind fight here. Can't do it according to the script, but with AFG's loadout is not gonna be much of a concern. He's pulling out that blue cane and then deciding, I don't need it, I can tank these hits.
It's more of a just-in-case piece of equipment. If you happen to get down into the truly low health stage, you can just turn the cane on and let the fight end. And it is one of those kind of questionable bosses there, but the cape and the butter sword seem to be doing the job by and large.
And the big eyeball goes down. Driekiann gets a mushroom, but more importantly, his 6th crystal. And he has Trinex ahead of him before being able to climb GT. Meanwhile, AFG is 2 dungeons behind, just entering Ice Palace, and still has yet to enter Skull Woods.
There's not a lot that the game can really do to Driekiann as far as Turtle Rock, but there's no boss that becomes really more difficult there, I don't think. So at this point, we're starting to look at GT as the last real potential for something that could close this back up.
Yeah, the only boss that's slightly rude in the Turtle Rock boss room is Blind, who likes to hide up there among the spikes where it can be hard to get at him, but that's going to be equally rude to both of our runners. Not much chance to really shave a lot of time.
And with the Cane of Burna in hand, you can just say, well, Blind, if you want to hide at the top of the room, I will too.
Yeah, I don't know what Moth's been telling you at your bi-weekly ALTTPR boss ice cream socials, but spikes do in fact hurt most of us. They do not give most of us some nonsensical invincibility because of strange damage tables.
Strange damage table, something something, no basis for a system of government? Looks like Driekiann was thinking about heading for the back. Still going to need a small key, though, to make that work out. Blink and you've missed most of this Ice Palace from AFG. He's going to be falling in on the boss here in just a couple of rooms. Go Mode Ice Palace, one of the faster things you can see in Rando. I wonder if that was a momentary lapse in... I keep getting all of these maps and compasses. Maybe it's just full key sanity and I can go through all the key doors here from Driekiann, because it was not just a needed to check the left chest for a key, it was had not checked any of the front chests before trying to head on into the middle.
Yeah, could be just a matter of muscle memory, could be a matter of what modes he's been practicing. And very nice final cycle quick kill on the Argus there from AFG as he picks up his Ice Palace crystal. That's crystal number 5. Still needs to head through Skull Woods and Turtle Rock.
And Ben, I think chat may be onto us here. Driekiann certainly heading to the back of Turtle Rock, but may not have a rendezvous with Trinex. Even though we've had all of these shuffled bosses, it's still so easy to just say, well, we're in this dungeon, we're getting this boss, right?
Yep, speaking of muscle memory, and even though we were just discussing possibly spawn in there and what would the consequences of that be, still easy to forget.
That was a nice little backup strat fire rod shot from Driekiann there. Noticed that the spin was not going to connect with the pokey in time, was going to be bunny beam first, then turned to the right and shot a fire rod shot to make sure that at least the pokey wasn't going to make things even more difficult.
And Driekiann skipping the big chest, heading to the back of Turtle Rock. There's, I believe, a 96% chance that this is just fine, and a slim 4% chance that this bites him and requires him to turn back around.
Speaking as someone who isn't always punished by the percentages, I hate this skip with every fiber of my being, but it works out for most people.
Oh yeah, it's bit me too. We've all been there. If you play enough of this game, it'll happen. I absolutely support playing the odds while shaking my fist at every time it doesn't work out. Meanwhile, AFG, not having picked up that cape, having a bit of a tougher Vitreous fight here.
I believe he does have a couple of blue potions in the back pocket, and there we see one of them come out.
Meanwhile, the laser bridge room, making Driekiann work for it, did have that small key that he craved, but in that final chest that he checked for it.
AFG gets the job done there on Vidi, gets the mushroom, gets crystal number 6, but Driekiann is closing in on crystal number 7, entering the boss room of Turtle Rock right now, and met with another one of those pentaforced Moldorms.
That's an easy kill on that Moldorm, another one of those bosses who's not too threatening outside of his home arena. And Driekiann only has one more item that he needs, and it's the GT Big Key.
You know the drill. 22 possible locations in the basement of this upcoming tower belongs to Ganon. And you need it to climb. Climb for that final time and face off with the pig to end his reign of terror. Let's see how Driekiann's going to go about it.
Yep, if you're an average frustrated gamer fan, you probably want to bet high, hoping that Driekiann goes entirely the wrong direction, and that AFG finds it very quickly.
Hope room with no keys at all, so Driekiann going to be forced to head left here. After that small key on the torch, we get into the Stelco's room, where Palace of Darkness's Arrow of Destiny lies, along with a heart container, another small key, and a piece of heart. Another one of those small keys there in the double firebar room brings our count up to 3. Between torches and chests, and then there are some more under pots in here, which is fine too. Getting a little run over by fire snakes there is Driekiann, just a 20 for the time in trouble.
Yes, indeed. He's got Rando Room ahead of him, then Bob's Chest, then, if we're lucky, we get to see what boss we will face in the ice arena.
Ah, the map of Swamp Palace. We were never going to know in advance what the prize of that dungeon was.
Driekiann has one more shot to avoid the ice fight today. And if that key is on the right side, that could be an opportunity for AFG to go Stalfo's room first, then right, and shave some time here. And it's a vanilla ice Armos.
One of the kinder, gentler fights you can find here in a boss shuffle.
Yep, and you know, I think if I'd been thinking about it, I would have realized that there's only so many arenas that this boss can spawn in, and I think that was the only one that we hadn't yet seen, so that's kind of what had to be there.
It does at times become difficult to remember only because I've been watching so much Rando the past few days. If anybody hasn't gotten their fill from watching this game, and this game's been a pretty good one, it's main tournament time and Challenge Cup time as well, meaning there is gobs and gobs and gobs of A Link to the Past Randomizer being played right now, and I certainly saw somebody with a butter sword earlier slashing up some Armos in some other arena, so I probably was not ever going to get to the thought that you had there.
Yeah, I mean, don't feel bad. I didn't realize until retroactively, but Seed Bleed is real, not just for players, but also for us commentators. But Driekiann finding his GT Big Key at just shy of 1 hour 28 minutes and is going to begin his gauntlet climb.
Looks to be in pretty good shape here, as AFG still needs to pull a small key off of Laser Bridge here and defeat the boss lurking in Trinex's lair. Couple of nice mimics rooms there. Now we're on into this spike room, which can be fun and interesting, or incredibly painful, particularly if you lack boots. Driekiann is a little low on magic at the moment here. Does have the bomb out. I wonder if we're going to see refill room. It looks like we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he still has a blue goo lurking in his back pocket, but you'd really rather not spend it on refilling your magic meter if you can possibly help it. But of course, that's when RNGesus serves up some nice full magic drops just to mock you.
A little knowledge of prize packs does go a long way. These have been, along with the Stalcos and a few other things, in the high-value pool all game, and a little bit of attention paid earlier may have saved Driekiann those couple of screen transitions. Of course, it can be difficult in the midst of everything else going on in a sea to remember, where am I in the middle of X prize pack?
And our vanilla trip through GT continues with Vanilla Lanmo 2. But we will not be seeing a Vanilla Moldorm 2 fight because we've already seen 2 Moldorms. And anything else that can spawn in his arena tends to be pretty nasty.
I think my personal least favorite might be Cold Stare, which I believe is absolutely a possibility for us right now.
Yep, Cold Stares can be bad. Personally, I am not a fan of encountering Helmasaur there. It just doesn't feel good. It's just awkward, and I don't like it.
That's another good one, by which I mean a terrible one.
Of course, it could also be Moth. Moth's pretty easy there.
Driekiann is going to need to pick up one more small key here. Looks like just going to opt for the, well, at least the potential of picking it up off of the mini Helma, and then there it is.
Yep, he's going to go ahead and check some chests, hoping to find silvers here. Meanwhile, it looks like AFG is not going to be picking up any time from that GT Big Key location. He's going to be heading left here, and oh, it's Vitreous. Not the worst thing that could spawn here, but certainly not the best. And oh boy, those little eyeballs are being very aggressive here today.
Driekiann opting for some cape strats with this butter sword in hand, and oh no, is there a fairy in the bottle? There is. That's the danger of bosses like that tend to rebound when they hit things. The moth is another instance. If you're kind of on the middle of the platform there, where it narrows and you bounce the moth off the top, it can bounce back into you and push you off the edge. Not a great spot to be. It's the same reason that I don't like Cold Stare up there so much. But in this case, the fairy does get the job done. Another Buttersword Slasher 2 does put the big eyeball down for Driekiann, who is now off to face the wizard. Not a very wonderful wizard, but here we are all the same.
Yep, some slightly rude geometry here. That was 4 hits. That's a 1-1-2 so far. With another 2 hits in that last cycle to finish off the fight.
Driekiann ahead and dropping into the pig Ganon. Butter sword, regular arrows. Does have the lamp torch glitch. Going to be at least generally useful, if not required. Depends on whether or not there's a magic refill in the bottle that does not have a bee in it. Already into Phase 3, Buttersword makes very quick work at the first 2 phases. Pretty much free 1 cycles for both of them. Did you find the arrows in the Dark World? Ganon asks, and no, Ganon, we did not.
Yep, not. I'm trying to think where they could even be hiding in the Dark World. I don't think we ever saw Cave 45.
A Pyramid Fairy would be an obvious outstanding check, given where the 5-6 crystals were and where Go Mode was.
Yes, indeed, and we were speculating about the contents of that last bottle, but Driekiann's making use of Lamp here like he thinks he really needs to conserve his magic. And even at that, managing to line up some triples for himself.
Sometimes the pig just cooperates, and then the pig explodes.
Get your GGs in for Driekiann. He's going to cross this bridge and collect his Triforce and victory in this race. With an official race time of
1 hour, 35 minutes, and 27 seconds.
There it is. And we'll see if we can get our winner in here for an interview shortly. In the meantime, AverageFrustratedGamer is continuing his gauntlet climb.
Has maybe a little way to go yet, but does have at least one blue potion that we know about in the back pocket.
Yep, never did find that gold sword, so not likely to make much of a difference. It'll make that Vitreous fight just a little more obnoxious, but not terrible.
Cleanly done Fire Rod Lanmo 2s there. Opting for both the magic and the health refill. Makes a lot of sense.
And this race is being simulcast over on the SpeedGaming French channel, so it looks like Driekiann is going to be giving his interview over there first. So he'll be making his way over to us next as we watch through AFG's final couple rooms of Ganon's Tower here.
That bonk always terrifies me, that one he did in Torches 2. I feel like I would just continue holding up for a little while and walk right off.
Oh, it saves you exactly 0 time, but it's so much fun though. AFG utilizing spin strats here. Needs to be a little careful with his health looking the way it is. But does take down those tiny eyeballs, and he's got the wooden arrows to spare for the big one.
Spaced out just right so that the eyeball would not rebound into him and start causing problems. So we'll see. AFG also has to face off with this wizard. We saw a 1-1-2-2 out of Driekiann. How does AFG fare?
Well, that looked like a triple to start with, although sometimes impacting so close that can wind up counting 2 hits as 1.
My expectation is that probably counted 1. So maybe 2-1? 2-1-1?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. But closes out with 2 more hits to take that wizard down.
And Ben, I will note that AFG is going to love seeing that emote in chat. Something of a Trek aficionado, the average frustrated gamer.
That makes me real happy. And Gowron's eyes continue to watch with approval at the glory of AFG's Ganon fight. Moving on into the second phase, taking a couple hits here and opting to go ahead and chug that blue goo that he saved for just such an occasion.
The safeties are there to be used.
Yeah, can't imagine what you'd be saving it for after this.
Well, the after party, of course, you have to go revive your uncle.
I mean, presumably, you get that Triforce, you can wish for whatever you want. You can get both your bottles full of blue goo if you want. Moving on to the final phase.
Does have the fire rod out, opting for what the NMG sphere would call baby triples. Perfectly acceptable way to hit triples, just opting not to spend some additional magic when you're not sure you can go get a hit in there at the top of the screen.
I'm at a point where I will take triples any way I can get them.
You
can
and
call
me
them whatever
both.
you want.
Yep, you and me both.
Triples are like dates. I'm happy with the ones I get.
That seems entirely too reasonable. But here we are. AFG has caused the pig to explode. Gonna stand there for just a few seconds longer in that victory pose with the sword raised high in the air. Then he'll cross that bridge. It's only going to be good for second in this race, but still manages to clean the thing up with a very respectable race time of 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 47 seconds. That was essentially an all dungeons less AGA run out of AFG there. The entirety of that tracker along the bottom row lit up.
Yes, indeed. All of them required at least to dip, other than that Thieves Town, making our respective times of 1 hour 35 and 1 hour 42 pretty respectable, all things considered.
And while we may be hanging on for both of our competitors to join us here, at least potentially, we should say, if you enjoyed the show they put on for you this evening, by all means, go give them a follow, both Driekiann and AFG, putting on the show for your entertainment this evening.
Absolutely. And if this sort of thing is your bag, as it is obviously mine, you're going to have plenty of chances to watch more of it coming up. We've got an absolutely stacked schedule in this group phase of the tourney here.
More races tonight, more races tomorrow, the day after that, and, well, I think we've still got, what, a good 2.5-ish weeks of the group round of this to go yet?
Yep, and these group rounds are round robin, so nobody is getting eliminated from this tournament until we reach the bracket stage. Looking at the schedule for tonight, we've got currently running Big Dunka versus Kaysden over on SpeedGaming 4. And then if I'm working my time zone mental math correctly, in just a little over an hour, we'll have Coin Chaser versus F. Coughlin over on twitch.tv/ALTTPR Randomizer.
I believe you have covered your math correctly there. At the same time, it does not appear to have a restream to its name, but there will be a match between Spy, also known as Spy Weaver, and Sean Rhapsody coming up at that same 10:10 Eastern time slot tonight.
And we are getting word in chat that AFG is doing his French language interview at the moment. We are simulcast, lucky enough to be simulcast in French here today. This lovely international community of randomizer runners that we have here.
Sadly, the Francais is not a language that I parley, but, you know, it is nice that we can bring in just as many people as possible, bring it to people in their own language.
I'm American. I barely talk English good.
Yeah, you know, that happens too.
But it looks like we will be joined by Driekiann in just a moment here, followed by AFG as soon as his French language interview is finished. And we are joined by our victor today, Driekiann. GG.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really thought I was going to lose this one, and really a good surprise on this one. I was scared all during the race because my execution was a bit lacking. I think you saw me doing some mistakes, and because of this, I decided to really focus on my logic and try to skip a bunch of as much as I could by reading the seed, and yeah, it did it pretty well. So yeah, a surprise.
Yeah, we definitely noticed that that pod boss skip, which wound up paying out, and we speculated whether you might feel behind enough to attempt to skip left side swamp, but of course it also paid out that you didn't, finding those mitts there.
I thought about it, but I wasn't planning to. I was just starting with the bike because if I found the bits before, I was potentially on go mode, and then I would skip the left side for just the maybe hater. But it wasn't, so I just took this big key, checked the big chest, and go to the left side, and yeah. Those meats were... I was speculating for the meat in swamp, because it's here a lot of time in this kind of circumstance. Yeah, I got lucky with the call.
And we're also joined here by our runner-up, AverageFrustratedGamer. GG.
Hello again, Ben. GG. Well done, Driekiann. I did see the Gowron Eyes GG emote. I am very much happy to see that emote. I want it in my life. And before I go on here, I wish to give big props to Jejo for the excellent GA Metal MSU that I'm very glad had approval. It's always important to rock. So beautiful MSU by Jejo.
Definitely nice to be able to have a little variety in our musical stylings here on SpeedGaming. Anything that sticks out in your mind about the seed?
Hearing what Driekiann's saying there with skips, I'm starting to see where I fell behind, I think. I'm sure there's some other parts to it, but definitely it sounds like you made some good skips. I did question going after the pod boss myself. I took a death at the top of a Hera with Helma King being mean to me, sitting in the hole all day. So I can definitely see where some time got eaten up, and I'll have to consider that for future efforts here.
Yeah, normally I'm more I like to full clear my seeds and going to mood for full clear. But what happened at the start is I got lost rescuing the old man, and I died in front of this stone. And at this point, I was like, okay, I did too many mistakes. I'm already behind, I'm sure. So I have to change my strategy, and I just went for logical calls.
Interesting. Good play. Good play.
AFG, talk us through a little bit. You kind of went for that village skip early on. You managed to go just about everywhere else. Was that something that you had in mind from the very beginning before you even started, or was it something that kind of came up from the early items?
I did not, but I tip my hat to a homemade beer. I think that if he was watching, he was sitting there enjoying the longer that I went without going to CAC. But no, I did not have it in mind. As things started progressing and I started getting a couple of pieces out of Escape and whatnot, I said, let's just never go to CAC. This will be fun. I don't usually not go to CAC. Let's give it the old college try. And then a hook showed up there and a flute showed up. Oh, well, that worked out. Okay, that's cool. There was kind of a dynamic decision that it wasn't pre-planned. Once I saw that I had a gear for Easter, and I said, let's go ahead and wipe Eastern out first. I figure it might be a different choice. Maybe it'll give me a leg up. Did not work out that way, but I'm hoping that the opening choices didn't cause too much of a difference.
For all of the early different routing, what happened was you both wound up in Thieves Town at around the half-hour mark, I think it was, Ben?
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right. At that point, AFG, I believe, had the Eastern Palace clear to his name, and that was the big difference at the time, but Driekiann was able to make up for that a little later.
Gotcha, okay. Yeah, definitely interesting to watch us back. I feel like a difference between a lot of the top runners that you see is they tactically know when to make good skips, and it sounds like Drake caught that pretty well. Or in this case, it was it sounds like a couple of issues, and then deciding, okay, I'm gonna really try to get a jump, and it seems like it worked pretty well. So that's definitely a choice that that better than average frustrated players tend to make, and it tends to work out in a pretty good way sometimes. It's interesting to see as a skill that is often beyond my abilities.
I guess it's a bit of an open question to both of you. How do you like the MC boss shuffle as the mode here?
Honestly, I'm not used to boss shuffle, and Open MC, just Open MC is the mode I prefer the least. But on this one, MC boss shuffle is pretty nice to play, so I really enjoy it, surprisingly. Not used really to play around it, but it's one of the modes that I'm like, okay, I'm glad to pick this one and try something with it.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. It's good to get variety in here. I definitely like the variety in the main tournament. 5 different modes, not rolling one mode over and over again is definitely nice. I love the inverted. Although it does seem weird, you've got your open heart surgery, as it's been termed, your open keys, your inverted keys, your MC boss shuffle, and ambrosia, because I don't know, we needed a 5th mode. So it seemed like a weird mix in to get there, but I really am glad that we're mixing between modes and getting to see something different and not get stale on one thing over and over again. So the boss shuffle is good. I think this might be the first time boss shuffle's really been featured up high in the main, or in any real tournament, any significant tournament. So I'm a fan of it. I like mixing it up. They say variety is the spice of life, and I agree. It's good to have. We don't need one mode all the time. I like it.
All right. Well, I know it is quite late over there across the pond. Thank you for gracing us with an interview. Any final thoughts as we wrap things up tonight?
GG, congrats, Drake. Keep going, roll on forward. Thank you for the comms. Always a pleasure. Ben and Mindium, fantastic comms, some of the best in the biz. Thank you, Iwala, for the tracking and the restream and the viewers. I hope you all had a good time. And this is how you AFG the main, folks. We got the quest for the Holy Ophir continue soon. We're gonna keep it going. Let's go.
It's pretty late for me. I'm not really used to English, so I will just say thank you everyone, and yeah, I hope you appreciate the race, and yeah, IMG, good luck for your next race, and yeah, we'll see for the next one. But I think it will be nice to play too.
Thank you both very much for coming in and putting on a show on this Tuesday night, or maybe in Driekiann's case, very early Wednesday morning by the end of it.
Yeah, it's 3 a.m.
Goodness.
The bird is calling. I will go there right after.
By all means, do not let us keep you. Thank you one more time for putting on a great show tonight. Ben, I think we should go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. It sounds like some people need to get to bed, others of us likely to continue watching some more Rando this evening. You already did say that we've got another match going on SG4 right now, which features a friend of mine, Kaysden, and who was on the other side of that matchup?
That was Kaysden versus Big Dunka, the mind behind the ALTTPR ladder system over there in Group A. So I'll probably be hopping straight there from here. So on behalf of everybody here in SpeedGaming, thank you to both our runners for putting on a great show, to our tracker, and everybody behind the scenes who makes this happen. Good night, everybody.